The Horde Mode XL update came out for World War Z, and it left me underwhelmed and a bit disappointed. But not for the reasons you might think. Okay, so the titular Horde Mode XL doesn't apply to me. I have an Xbone. If anything, I'm kinda glad that the exclusive mode for the next-gen systems is just an enhanced version of what is already in the game, rather than something truly exclusive to it. That, along with having a proper challenge mode for Horde Mode, with swapping mutators to boot, was probably the best choice they could have made in that regard. Then there's the weapon system getting reworked, which really doesn't change the game all that much. The big change is that perks and weapon skins are now independent of each other. The level cap for each weapon is raised to 15, the grenade launcher now actually has perks, and each weapon now has several new gun parts and some additional skins that can be unlocked as you go beyond the maximum. It's worth mentioning after you get a weapon to level 5, the original maximum, you no longer get stat increases. Weapons have also had their stats unified between variants to make them overall more consistent. These are improvements, make no mistake, but for me and my friends, this doesn't address the actual issue with the weapon progression system, the grind. Most guns are going to need 3 to 4 full runs of devoted combat just to get a single level, especially once you get beyond level 5. This can become a pain for the tier 3 weapons, which typically only appear towards the end of the campaign, unless you get lucky with a breaching charge or a bomber. And with just how many guns there are in the game to begin with, it's very possible for a run to not give you a weapon you want to level up to begin with, and you still need to pay the supply coin fee just to unlock the next set of levels, which will quickly start to outpace how much you're earning per level, especially if you're still upgrading any classes. It got so bad that my friends were happy when they didn't level a gun up because it meant they got to make a profit for once. And don't even get me started on the challenge coins. The biggest change to the game is actually not in the patch notes. The game has been made a bit more forgiving. Not easier, but more forgiving. Intense and Extreme actually spawn medical supplies somewhat regularly, instead choosing to limit the tier 2 and 3 weapon spawns to encourage the player to rely on stealth, perks, and the occasional melee skill. After this update, I actually was able to beat Mission Command on the extreme difficulty and unlock my ninja sword. Nice. The only other detail is the new weapons. They're a size, and they're not the meat cleavers or the giant sword, so I don't care. But their effects seem pretty useful, and I've seen a few people use them. Then there's the multi-barrel shotgun, a tier 3 rapid-fire break-action shotgun to be exact. And it's quickly becoming one of my favorite weapons in the game to play with, especially if I'm on a lower setting. Not sure if I'm going to use this for insane and extreme runs yet, but it's nice to have something that on low settings can just down a bull from the front. Oh yeah, they also made the light machine gun and sniper rifles spawn more frequently. You know, they're treated like actual tier 2 weapons. This update has also been a bit bugged. There was a bug with silencers at launch that thankfully has been fixed, but now the Undying mutator, which is already an obnoxious one, is bugged to be about 10 times more potent than it's meant to be. Some people have even had lurkers just straight up be invincible. Hopefully that gets patched by the time this video's out. As far as the core moment-to-moment gameplay goes, this update doesn't actually add anything to that. That's what actually left me underwhelmed and disappointed. When other big updates were added to the game, they brought with them new items, new special infected, and occasionally even a new class, all of which could really mix up the gameplay loop, which is good as the game honestly needs it. This one just felt like a set of glorified balance changes. To be fair, I guess that's to be expected for a game this late in its lifespan, but I would argue there are still things to be improved, and the weapon upgrade system was not high on that priority list. And that's the rest of the video, going over a hypothetical update for World War Z after this one, and what ideally would be done. I ran this by my group of friends I usually play this with just for some second opinions. We'll call this the Scavenger Update. You'll see why. Oh yeah, I'm also assuming any bugs I brought up would have already been fixed by now. Let's start with the cosmetics. Not terribly important, I know, but it has a menu devoted to it, so it's worth mentioning how not good they are. Every character has a recolor of their costume and a hat, not counting DLC. The thing is, the hat is treated as a separate costume entirely, so you need to re-buy the hat for each recolor. Instead, it would make more sense and be generally better if they were separated, and given that Dead Rising was able to achieve that back in 2006, this shouldn't be that hard to achieve. I also looked through all the outfits currently in the game, and Arnetta has a single DLC outfit that would need its color down to account for this, but this would otherwise be achievable with all the current costumes in the game. On to something that would actually affect gameplay. I wouldn't mind seeing a tier 3 pistol or two, but I can also see why they haven't done that. They really don't want secondaries to be usable as primaries, and given how the Magnum and melee weapons broke Left 4 Dead 2 in half, I can't entirely blame them. The ideas I had for World War Z would be a Magnum pistol, how quaint, which would have max penetration and a reliable reload, alongside a micro SMG, or a tactical machine pistol as RE4 fans would know it, which would unleash a hailstorm of bullets faster than the PDW, but as I said, these aren't things the game strictly needs, especially with how many weapons are already in the game. Now, onto something that actually would impact the game, a 9th class. This class would be the Scavenger, if you didn't guess that already. And the idea is that you forego direct combat prowess in favor of keeping the team well armed and well stocked for any given situation, as well as making the most of looting opportunities. I actually designed a set of perks complete with a level skill tree, ranks and all, but rather than audibly explain them, let me just show you. I'll put them up column by column as it was, so that way you can easily see it. But that does mean you're also going to have to actually look at the screen if you've been using this as background noise. Sorry. There's a few smaller additions I wouldn't mind seeing, like allowing supply bags to refill a stationary turret, or being allowed to replace a broken virus sample with a fresh one if you found a second one during your run. But the big thing I'd like to see addressed in an update is the grind. More accurately, grinding out supply points, weapon experience, and the challenge coins. Now, for those of you wondering, why don't you just do Horde mode for the grinding? That's twofold. The first is the time investment. You get a lot for it, but the 40 waves it takes to maximize your rewards is still a lengthy time investment. It'll be about 2 hours to do that if you only take 3 minutes per wave. And moreover, speaking for me and my friends, we're just not in love with Horde mode. It's a decent change of pace from the base game, but it's only the holdout style of gameplay, which gets rather repetitive for us. The constant jumping between stealth, combat, and objective-based gameplay, that's not in Horde mode, and the scavenging angle is pretty minimal to boot. If the answer to grinding is just to play Horde mode, then that means everyone who isn't into spending hours in a survival holdout mode are just SOL. And the only reason this is a problem is because supply points are a slog to get in any large quantity. It's actually gotten so bad that many people are electing to just play Missile Command on Extreme and just focus on getting to the elevator holdout section. It's far more profitable than actually beating any level on Insane is, and it even earns points faster than Horde mode Classic currently does. And hey, if you can actually beat the level, there's the challenge coins and a sweet sword in it for you if you haven't already gotten it. But okay, why would people prefer tactical suicide on the same level over and over versus actually playing the game? It's because the supply point rewards are pretty out of date when you consider what the game's current costs are for everything, especially after this new update. In the beginning of World War Z, there were only 2 things supply points could be spent on: class perks and weapon variants. The class perks would slowly get more expensive, but especially once you start playing on hard or up, you'll earn enough money to get all of them. It was slow but steady, and it would cost you 6,250 supply points to max out a class, about 16 levels on hard, since virus samples didn't exist yet. Then prestiging your class became a thing. First of all, it costs a whopping 7,500 supply points to do it in the first place. For the record, that's 9 successful runs on the extreme difficulty, 13-ish on Insane, and 18 or 19 on Hard. For Horde mode on Normal, 25 waves won't even give you 5,000. Now, let's do some basic math. To maximize the effectiveness of a class while minimizing the cost, you'll need one perk in each column. Adding the lowest values together, this is a minimum of 2,800 supply points if you know exactly what you want and you happen to want the cheapest option. A prestige rank costs 7,500, and it resets all your perks. After you get to rank 4, you will have all the perks that class currently has in terms of prestiging. So multiplying both numbers by 4 and adding the sums together will give us the total minimum price to max out a class, not counting the money you have to spend to get those perks back one last final time, since you can do that much more slowly. Take that sum and divide it by the money you're expected to earn per run, and you can get an idea of how many runs it's expected to take to max a class out. Now, with both Horde and Insane being most players' preferred grinding spot, virus samples on Horde being pretty reliable, at least for the average team, and the fact that there will just be some dud runs, I'm going to set 500 supply points as the average. Now allow me to cut away from the gameplay to show you some numbers. Assuming I did my math correctly, it will take around 80-some runs for the average player to max out a single class. Even doing every run successfully on Insane only rounds that down to about 75 runs if you don't get virus samples. And so doing so for all 8 classes by the original estimate of 500 coins, it'll be roughly 660 runs, give or take. That would actually go up to 742 if the scavenger was added to the game, for the record. And during all of that, don't forget about the weapon upgrades. With how it currently is in the game, leveling up a weapon is a measly 250 supply points, but the price increases by that value every time. They thankfully show some mercy, and there's a price cap of 1,500 for gun levels. Even still, that'll set you back 18,750 supply points per gun. With there being 22 guns in the game total, that's another 41,200 supply points. So after this update, the game may as well have added the scavenger class in terms of point costs. So with all that, it currently costs a total of 370,800 supply points to maximize your classes and guns.
We live in an actual nightmare!
But okay, one might ask, is the 640 points for constantly trying and failing that one level really much better? That's still 64 or so runs, give or take. Well, remember, it's not just an issue of your profits, it's also a matter of time. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you're an actual god of gaming, and the moment you start playing, you never once spend more than 10 minutes in any given level. So going with that 83 run estimate from before, it'll be about 830 minutes, because that's what multiplying by 10 is like, which falls just short of 14 hours per class. Now, given that a slow run to that elevator is only about 7 minutes or less, that's no more than 7 hours to prestige a class to max. Even with the most generous numbers I could think of, players found a way to cut the grind in half. Thankfully, my proposed solution is much shorter than my reasoning. Just make it so players don't have to rebuy perks as they rank up. Now, you still would have to get the experience to re-unlock them, but once you get the needed XP, you wouldn't be forced to buy it again if you got it previously. That alone would save a minimum of 2,800 points, which you could then save for your next prestige rank, which would lower the cost down to 4,700 coins. Coincidentally, 25 waves of Horde mode gives you exactly that many supply points, at least on normal. Alternatively, that 2,800 supply points is a lot of money to go to weapon upgrades, and trust me, you'll need it. I already went over what's annoying about grinding out the weapons, so let's cut to the fixes. I think it's time to have the higher difficulties give more weapon XP. It made sense not to do that when the level cap was 5, but that's been tripled since then. A more indirect solution would be to add a few mutators, which I'm putting on screen right now. A nice way to actually grind for weapon experience is to use the mutators Crossbow and Shotgun Fiesta to get those weapons on site, to ensure those weapons spawn and make grinding XP for them much easier. So doing that for every weapon type in the game would surely be appreciated. Plus it could give some more flair to the challenge mode. Speaking of challenge mode, I'm mostly fine with how challenge coins are handled. I don't have many myself, but a lot of that is just because I haven't been doing the weeklies as often. I do, however, have 3 changes I would make. The first is to the challenge mode itself. Having the normal challenges earn 5 coins once, and earning 20 for the hard variants, with that number going down to 15 once you either earn the 5 or complete the daily. Granted, daily switch so fast I don't see the odds of that happening. It's mostly because I find it both dumb that normal challenge mode offers no challenge coins, when the whole point of the mode was to provide them, as well as it being dumb that the insane challenge mode offers no better rewards, either in terms of supply points or challenge coins, than just playing on insane to begin with. Seriously, compare it. Outside of the ability to get documents, there's no difference. And with this change, it would still leave the weekly challenges well above giving you more than 7 dailies would. As for the challenge coins themselves, I would simply add partial credit to playing on Insane or Extreme to begin with. Similar to how you can get supply points for your effort, I would make it so on these 2 higher settings, you would get a minimum of 5 challenge coins if you made it to the finale, even if you choke, but you have to actually beat it to get the rest. As a side, this would not be subtracted from the Insane mode challenge rewards. Finally, backtracking to challenge mode proper, the last change would be the documents. Just let the players actually collect 3 of them if they find 3 of them in a level. You can already only collect documents in challenge mode. There's only 3 levels available in the dailies at any given time. The weeklies change, get this, once a week, meaning that if you don't need documents in that level, it's of no use to you there. The challenges for that daily might just cross off your favorite class, or have Undying, which makes every special zombie a sheer damage sponge. Even when the mutator's working properly, your team needs to succeed to even keep the document, and it takes all 9 documents to actually get that level's perk. A level perk that typically only has a 5% chance of working per player, on top of most of them not even doing anything for the first half of the stage. So with all of that, do you really need to force 9 minimum playthroughs for what amounts to a helpful but unreliable benefit? One that, honestly, you have to be playing on the higher settings to appreciate in the first place? Just let the players who are actually vigilant enough to find all 3 skip a few runs. Hell, even only finding 2 per run, I'll tell you right now, 5 runs for a challenge mode is a lot more tolerable than 9. Alright, that's enough. I think you get the idea. One issue me and my friends have had with the past few updates is that they feel like they're being designed for players who have been playing this game since day 1, or have made this their main game that they play. Like, the new increase in levels for guns feels like it was designed for players who have already prestiged all 8 classes. And maybe most of the player base has, I wouldn't know, I don't have that kind of data. But it would be nice to have a content update that reels back the grind instead of adding to it for a change. Back 4 Blood was able to do that, to the point where its grind is actually a non-issue, so I think World War Z can do it. And while I would love the addition of some secondary pistols, a better costume system, or a new class, I would truly just love for World War Z to not be a part-time job in order to engage with these new systems in the first place. But hey, this update gave me a really fun shotgun to play with. That's more than what Halo Infinite players get to say these days.
Have a look at this.
Lord, give me strength.
Stay back.
Breaching the door. Look what I found. That feels good.